Hey, this is Darren. This is day 22. And today, actually, 2 hours and 24 minutes. 2 hours and 24 minutes. And this was interesting because yesterday I talked about the structure and reading from the book. And Michael Haig, one of the other screenwriters that I learned from, he said this: you have to follow the exact structure as far as when the acts happen and what happens in each of the acts. And he said you can see to the minute where the transitional scenes happen. And I thought, well, it's probably maybe it's pretty close, but you see Rudy playing in the background here. I watched Rudy once, and I also watched the in Shallow Hal happened to be on TV, so I watched the first 20 minutes or so of that. And here was the interesting thing. Studying this and going back and watching movies, now I see them differently. So it was interesting that in Shallow Hal, it starts off with his dad on his deathbed. Uh, First scene, opening scene, and his dad tells him that he's got to go for hot girls. He can't go for an average girl. And his dad, when on his deathbed, when he's 9 years old, uh, kind of plants that seed. So a lot of these movies, when people are young, they have these flaws or these wounds, they call them in screenwriting, that has to be resolved. And 12 minutes into the movie is where he's locked in the elevator. The elevator gets stuck with Tony Robbins, and Tony says he's fixated on the outside of women, for the outside of women, and tries to get him to look for the inside. And then the elevator scene ends 16 minutes into it, and then Shallow Hal starts seeing things differently. So when I looked at Rudy, I'm just checking my notes here. When I looked at Rudy, it was fascinating. The opening scene is him playing football as a kid and being left out, not being big enough or smart enough or talented enough to play with his older brothers. The desire line comes at 4 minutes and 36 seconds. If you're watching this video on the blog, you'll see I'm putting my notes in the blog too. So the notes that I take, I'm actually posting them right in the blog. Just interesting. 6 minutes into it is where he goes to high school. He transitions to the high school years, and he's planning on playing his last football game. 12 minutes into it flashes 4 years later when he's working in the factory. 19 minutes into it, in 10 seconds, is where his best buddy from school dies in the factory. And the truth of the matter is, when I was talking to Rudy, it was actually his mentor that died. So in this fictional character, Pete, one of his best buddies from growing up, is also represents his mentor. So anyway, and then 20 minutes into it, in 30 seconds, is when he's at the funeral and he decides he's going to go to South Bend. So this is a transition scene into Act 2. So that's what I spoke about yesterday. So it's interesting looking at exactly 20 minutes into it, exactly what they said. 21 minutes, 21 seconds is the scene where his dad is trying to talk him out of it, that it's crazy to go for dreams, and a story of what happened with his grandfather about buying a farm, and then all the cows died and couldn't sell the land, and blah, blah, blah. So 28 minutes into it is when he's at Notre Dame sitting with the priest, and he said, people told me all my life that I could not do it, or always told him what he could and could not do, and he didn't want to do that anymore. So this is kind of solidifying that he's taking responsibility. 1 hour into it is where Rudy gets 1 hour and 4 minutes where Rudy gets the acceptance letter that he's accepted to Notre Dame. So the transition there. 1 hour and 12 minutes where Rudy makes a practice team. 1 hour 23 minutes where the coach tells Rudy that he can finally dress. And then that coach quits, and then Dan Devine comes in as the head coach of Notre Dame. 1 hour and 33 minutes into it, where the captain gives his shirt and asks Rudy to dress in his place, and then the whole team comes in and does that. I believe that's partially, at least one person did that. That was part of a true story, or a true part of the real story. 1 hour and 34 minutes into it is where Rudy calls home and tells them he's dressing. And then 1 hour and 40 minutes is where Rudy runs out of the tunnel. And then credits roll at 1 hour and 50 minutes. So it was interesting that exact transformational going from he's dreaming, but when his friend dies, that becomes the transition that if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do that. So for me, in telling my story, it's partially interesting because Dave Fitzgerald, my second mentor, Vinny was my first, my second mentor. Um, when he passed away, it kind of changed me and got me to think, I got to step this up a bit. So it got to be interesting how that plays in. So it's Saturday. I'm not committed to doing the weekends, but I felt that I just wanted to follow up and was able to fit it in my schedule. So 2 hours closer to my dream. How about you? See you tomorrow. Stage time.